We'll be talking about the Hathras case ahead in the show and discussing why even 8 years after Nirbhaya, so many years after some of the most stringent rules in the world on rape, the situation on ground doesn't really change. But let me get to the lead story this evening. Unlock guidelines have come out. It's the last day of Unlock 4.0. So technically from tomorrow, Unlock 5.0 begins, the next stage of Unlock. So what's changing in this stage? Well, quite a bit. Nationwide, first of all, cinema halls will be allowed to open with 50% capacity, and that's the real big change. Swimming pools can be opened for training purposes. States will be allowed to take a call on opening up of educational institutions, but there are rules in place that there should be written consent by parents. You cannot force parents to send children to school and insist on attendance, etc. That's another crucial one. In the state of Maharashtra, some restrictions have been extended till the 31st of October, so another month of those. But what has opened up, or what will open up from the 1st of October, is in-restaurant dining, hotels, bars, as well as food courts, all with their own sets of regulations at about 50% of capacity at any given time. Well, how do we deal with this at a time when India has crossed about 62 lakh cases of COVID positive cases? Maharashtra is close to 14 lakh cases. The cases are increasing and the restrictions are reducing. So how do we bring these two together to make sure we economically move ahead safely? To speak on this, I'm joined now by Dr. Shashank Joshi, who's of course the Dean of the Indian College of Physicians. He's part of the State of Maharashtra's task force. I'm also pleased to be speaking with Mr. P V Sunil, Managing Director of Carnival Cinemas this evening. Welcome to both of you. Mr. Sunil, let me come to you first, because cinema owners have literally been, I think, last on the list. Even restaurants have managed to open their doors in most parts of the country. Are you a relieved man this evening?
Not just relieved, we are fully excited to get this news that we can reopen the cinemas by 15th of October. In fact, you know that it is not just showing a movie or watching a movie. It is a livelihood of thousands of people. It is the existence of some business. So and now it is high time we can resume with whatever controls are required to ensure full safety for the patrons. So we are fully excited to get this news.
Sunil, how does it work with 50% capacity? I mean, I just want to understand, is it viable to open up with those kind of restrictions? And how will cinema owners ensure that there is safety and social distancing? After all, this is an indoor, centrally ventilated area where people will be watching movies.
Yes, in fact, world over, many countries have reopened theaters. So most of the places, the norms have been 50% capacity and other safety controls. So we have not observed any difficulties in those places so far. So 50% capacity is, of course, viability is a question mark, but we have to begin somewhere. In fact, we had, as an association, we had proposed 50% because every alternate seat will be kept vacant. But we were probably thinking that government might put more strict controls. Maybe it could be less than 50, but we are very happy that it has come out with 50, and they have confidence in us that we will follow these rules very strictly, and at least 50% capacity can be enough safety and social distancing, etc. So all our softwares, etc., are being fine-tuned to achieve this 50% kind of booking in online and other places. So I'm sure, there are a lot of safety controls. If you look at even the flight, it is running 100%. All other areas are being opened up so much because it is kind of a balance between the business, economy, and the safety, etc. So it's time to balance and move ahead. So I'm sure, with all the safety controls, it is good enough to go ahead.
I have one more question for you before I go to Dr. Joshi, which I must ask you. Do you expect people to come in large enough numbers, Mr. Sunil?
A kind of survey, not a very large sort of survey, but the survey shows that majority of the people are willing to come. They have been waiting for it. I am sure in the initial days, there could be concerns, there could be fear, safety factor, etc. But once we demonstrate that the whole process is safe enough, I am sure people will definitely be coming in. And once the bigger content start following, then definitely it will be back to the normal business in some time.
That's the big question. Will the big movies follow and how quickly enough? I'm going to come back to you on that. But meanwhile, Dr. Joshi, what is the safety aspect of this? You've seen the list of things that have opened up. I want to get your perspective of, can we manage to ensure that there isn't a huge spate in cases even as we open up more and more economic activities, especially things like restaurants and cinema halls?
Tamanna, first of all, thank you for having me here. And secondly, I think you ask a very pertinent question. I think now the government is very clear. They want to put the onus on the citizens. And I think it is for the citizens and participants like restaurant owners, cinema owners, they have to follow guidelines and each citizen has to follow COVID appropriate behavior. So I think we need a lot of caution. I would suggest that it is very nice that there is a step towards unlocking where people at large have to be mindful. What is very disappointing is some parts of India, including Mumbai, where people are not masking, people are in crowded environments, they are not caring about ventilated spaces, they are not really concerned about sanitation. That is very abysmal. So I think if citizens take it up as a responsibility and have this masking appropriately done, avoid crowding, avoid the distancing norms which are laid down, if they are all laid down perfectly, I don't see a challenge. And we need to do two more things. One is we need to reverse isolate our vulnerable group. Because in COVID, in India, if you see the current statistics, we have large numbers. We probably are the world number 2, but our recovery is almost at 80%. And our case fatality rate is down to, a little above 1.7, 1.8, which we need to get down below 1%. And that vulnerable group is the one which is succumbing, like the senior citizens, the people with hypertension, diabetes. So I personally feel that whoever is adhering to these guidelines, I would not encourage senior citizens or people who have comorbidities to go in restaurants or cinema halls. But rest of the crowd can. Many of them can be asymptomatic carriers, which can be spreaders and super spreaders. That's the concern everybody has. But I think if we follow a tight masking policy, that's the best vaccine you have. If everybody wears a good N95 mask or an appropriate mask, I would say, because N95 may not be feasible for everybody, your likelihood of getting the disease is very, very low if you are masked appropriately. I think that itself is a big thing. And sanitization, fomites, and of course, distancing norms, if they are followed appropriately, it is very important. Both for restaurants and cinema halls, they will have to have strict sanitation and strict air ventilation guidelines. And if they have some exhaust fans in place, reverse isolation systems in place.
So, Dr. Joshi, I want to understand one more important point from you. Is the outdoor versus indoor. Part of the guidelines also sort of remove the cap on the number of people who can gather outdoors. More and more, research is now showing that the threat of spread is less outdoors and more when it's indoors in a centrally ventilated kind of air conditioned system. How would you apply that to the current, kind of unlocking? That would then logically put indoor dining and cinema halls to some extent in a higher risk category?
Absolutely. So I think if you look at New York, if you look at Europe, they have also opened up, but outdoor dining opened first. So, open air theaters opened first. So that is the first step. Now in a cinema hall, it is tough because cinema hall, you have to have an appropriate ventilation system. And there, the lesser the crowd, the better it is. And masking is the only way out. But as far as dining is concerned, I think one always encourages outdoor dining because we know that when there is a crowded environment with poor ventilation, which is what many of our smaller restaurants have, I would say many of them, if they are very, very small, even if they go up to 20%, 30%, it is good enough. 50% sometimes may be a challenge. The biggest problem is that when you eat, you unmask. And when you go to a toilet, that is the spot. So whether it is a cinema hall or a restaurant, the toilets are going to be one spot where exhaust fan and reverse ventilation has to be there. And also, whenever you unmask to eat, then you will have a risk of transmission. So if we are able to mask appropriately and follow some guidelines to the last T, then it is going to really restrict. Now, this is self-regulation is very tough in India. I think, if people have a process of self-realization, it is great. If they don't follow, then we will again have a spurt of cases. We have clearly seen with every unlock a spurt happening. But, we have to take that calculated risk. And I think I would appeal to every
So I want to ask this question to Mr. Sunil.
Yes.
I need to ask this. No, you're right. I need to ask this question to Mr. Sunil because, if we were a self-regulating, disciplined kind of a public, maybe we would have not gotten to 63 lakh cases. So let's be realistic. But Mr. Sunil, what about food and beverage in cinema halls? Will those be served or will that be restricted as a precaution?
No, as I fully agree with Dr. Shashank that self-regulation probably is the best way to go ahead now, because we cannot stop the world anymore. So I would say the cinema halls are actually a much better controlled environment in terms of regulations, because we have the trained staff to look at it. We have the CCTVs capturing every corner of the place. We have a team of people in the central headquarters connected to each cinema live to watch every moment, to ensure what is the maximum safety possible from our end, what can be enforced. So I think, this is much better than any other probably open locations where we have no control on the people just like that. F&B is, of course, part of the business. Nobody can stop it. But at the same time, all the safety regulations, whatever to be followed for the F&B will be followed, and restricted food menu, etc. is going to be followed. Also, what the new technology probably everybody is adopting, we are adopting, is that you don't have to go outside or to the cafe to order the food. You can sit and then order the food from your seat. It is delivered safely to your seat. So you're not actually mixing up with people, or any food is touched by people, etc. So those kind of additional safety factors are being built in. I feel that should be enough to take care of maximum safety possible from our end.
Right. Will it reflect in the ticket prices, all of these additional safety measures, or will there be discounts to draw people in initially?
If people allow us, we'll double the ticket price, but I think that's not going to work. We'll have to reduce it slightly to bring the people. Yes. Definitely the cost is more because of all these safety requirements and the lesser capacity, etc. But definitely it's not the time. First, our effort is to bring people in, demonstrate to them that this is a safe place. You can enjoy with your family again watching movies, a big screen. So the initial effort is in that. So we probably is getting into that concept first, and then we look at the ticket prices, etc.
Okay. All right. Please don't double the ticket prices right away. I don't think people's spending capacity is that much. But of course, I understand the point that your costs will increase. Thank you so much, Mr. Sunil and Dr. Joshi, for speaking with us. It is, a sense of excitement actually for people to be able to go out, and also gives a sense that we are learning to live with the new normal one way or the other. Self-regulation, self-control is key. We're only harming ourselves if we don't listen to these norms.